most sage advice.
Well,
In fact, Dr. Lim, in my peak of the week this week, it talked about the 2 things you have learned in education.
that's right.
In other words, be in your class and have
Yes.
some kind of active engagement, and then you've got a chance.
You got a chance. If you got them in the room, if you're in the room and they're in the room and you're actively, you got a chance. If any of those three aren't there, if the teacher's out constantly or regularly, or the kids are out running the halls and they're not coming and nobody's bothering to get them in the rooms, or you have activities or something where you don't have any instructional time, or you got them in the room and you're not engaged with them, you got no chance.
That's right.
None.
That's right.
None. And
That's
again,
right.
I want to, Dr. Hamilton and I were with Thomasville City Schools, and 2 of those new APs were ours, and so they've heard many of these things. Sean Paul was mine at High Point Central back in the old days, but that's what we're talking about, and that kind of leads us in tonight. Is our job is instructional improvement. If you're one of those people who believes, well, test scores really don't matter, get out now. This program is not for you. The reason why school administrators are hired is to make a good number go up or a bad number go down. You don't teach a soul. Your job is instructional improvement. It's continuous improvement that don't come to work regularly or come to work impaired or less than at full strength and don't engage with kids. You got no chance. Now, Dr. Crawford just laughed because he and I went through the wars back in the old days in CMS. Dr. Crawford is my oldest son, by the way. And we've been together for how long now, Dr. Crawford?
94, 95,
Yeah.
96.
We've been together right at 30 years. I know he doesn't look that old. He was just a youngster then, but we've been together nearly 30 years now, folks. And we worked in a district back in the day when you just rounded up the kids and put them in the auditorium because you didn't have enough subs because teachers were out partying. That's when the Panthers hit town, and they wouldn't show up till Wednesday. They'd get drunk at the ball game on Sunday and wouldn't show up till Wednesday. That was just a regular. I had one I had to fire because he called me from the drunk tank on Monday morning. I never will forget that. He called me from the drunk tank when I was still a D-Sway. It was junior high then. He got locked up. He climbed up on one of the big Panthers out front, drunk as a sailor.
On more than one occasion, I had to remind people, sir or ma'am, I'm going to need you to wipe off the stamp on your hand.
Exactly. We considered it a win back in those days if they showed up in clean clothes and sober and not in the same clothes they had on yesterday with a dozen stamps on their hand from all the bars the night before. It was quite a time. But now understanding that only 20% of the people that we hired back then made it to their 5th year. That's how bad retention was during that time, because there were so many jobs and so many things other than they could do to teach. It was hard to get commitment out of those folks. You're trying to get scores out of people that aren't committed and don't engage with kids, you're in trouble, folks. And so this semester, the first half is going to be about being able to put a PLC together, disaggregate those scores and know where you got problems. The second half of the semester is going to be addressing those faculty in terms of a professional growth plan. If we don't have the teachers that we need or want, we got to grow them into them. The bus is not coming after a while, bringing them. They're not, no help's coming. As my old Irish mother would say, you better not get your tail in the crack. There ain't no help coming. You got to make the ones you got into the ones you need and want. And that's what we're going to do the second half of this semester. And so we're excited to take you along this journey with us. But we firmly believe that if you want to be a quality school administrator and you want to have a school whose culture is teaching and learning, you have to plan and work that plan, hoping that it's going to happen or hoping that good teachers are going to come along. Not going to happen. It's that get good teachers in the room, get the kids in the room, and make sure that they're engaged. That's the trick. Now, I do want to call out our 2 principal practitioners that are with us tonight. I want to make sure that you understand that Dr. Robin Hamilton and Dr. Jamal Crawford, They are the two best in the state, I would surmise. Now, that's not Dale's opinion. They are the best two in the state getting EBOS scores in terms of their kids growing. Dr. Crawford was the triad winner this past year. Winner, not nominee, the winner as the best principal. That's how many districts? 3 or 4 districts: Greenboro, High Point, Thomasville, Winston-Salem. His school, which was a Title I, complete Title I school, federal housing project, 100% Title I, made 3.5 years of growth as a school. That's unheard of, folks. That's unheard of. Dr. Hamilton, on the other end of the spectrum, has one of the highest rated populations in the state of North Carolina at Masonboro, and she gets tremendous growth. She gets record growth with them every year. So the point is if you know how to do it, you can get any kid to grow. You can get the lowest kids in terms of their ability or the highest kids. But there's a system to this, folks. These folks are going to teach you that system. That's what they're going to do semester, that system of how to get growth out of your students. And that's what our business is. They are tremendous experts. Dr. Stedman and Dr. Revis, seasoned administrators, very successful in their time, still in the business, know how to do this as well. You know, if I got to pick whoever I wanted, this is the 4 I'd pick to be in 601, because I do get to pick. That's why they're here. So I can't be excited enough. Dr. Stedman, do I have any part in the program tonight other than just ranting?
Well, you opened up and you're gonna end it, okay?
I'd be fine. I'll hush them, let y'all work.
And just a reminder, if you look under week 1, I'm not gonna pull it up because we need to get started. The agenda is there. We're gonna follow the agenda. Our purpose tonight is we're gonna give you the whole elephant tonight. We're gonna put the whole AAPSL out on the table. And then we're going to go back and we're gonna refocus week by week on task 1, task 2, but you need to begin, it's like Covey said, you need to begin with the end in mind. When you see the whole AAPSL, it'll help you understand why you're doing task 1. And then why you do task 1 before you do task 2. It's going to help you understand sequentially everything that you have to do over the 5 tasks of the AAPSL. So tonight's purpose is to expose the entire AAPSL, and then don't get overwhelmed, because we're going to let you eat that elephant one bite at a time. And we introduced task 1 to you on Tuesday night, and we will further talk about that on next Tuesday night. But this is so that you'll understand the whole reason why you're doing what you do. Very quickly, I'm going to just remind you of the school profile that you should be working on already. And then after that, Dr. Hamilton's going to talk to you about task 1, Dr. Revis about task 2, Dr. Hamilton's going to come back with task 3, Dr. Revis is going to come back with task 4, Dr. Crawford's going to end with task 5, and then at the very end, Dr. Lamb's going to put his Daleism on all of it, and then we're going to give you and then I will bring it back to focus at the very end about focusing only on task 1. Okay, I'm going to do a refocus on that, and then we'll have a question and answer if you have anything at the very end. So with that in mind, just remember, we introduced to you on Tuesday evening that you begin using the template that's in Blackboard, that you begin with the school profile. And all you're doing is telling the story about your school. You're telling about your school, and in that, it's not a dissertation. It's a couple of, I would say, 4 or 5 good paragraphs, a couple of good pages, well written, but you're talking about your school. You introduce your school. You talk about what your school looks like. There may be something distinct about your school, the history of it. It may be a new school. If it is, you talk about that and how it became the school that it is, but you talk about the demographics of your school in your profile. You know, what does it look like? You know, free and reduced lunch. You know, is it a Title I school? What does the staff look like? How big is it? How many students do you have? What is the racial diversity of your students? You know, all of those kinds of things. When we read it, we should understand exactly what your school looks like based on your school profile. Remember, and we'll talk about this more specifically on next Tuesday night, and then really we're going to focus on it next Thursday night when Dr. Hamilton and Dr. Revis will delve into APA 7th edition and how it relates to the work that you've got to do. Remember, this is a very writing intensive class. It's very writing intensive. You're going to do a lot of writing, and it's important that you don't have time to do and to redo and to redo and to redo. You need to work hard to try to get what you do done right the first time. Even when it comes to us for review, when it goes to peer reviews with your peers that we'll talk about later on, you need to, every time you do something, you should try to complete it as if it's your final product that you're submitting to us. With that in mind, you've got to keep in mind that we do look at APA, and we're going to be very strict with that. Your grammar, your punctuation, all of those kinds of things, take it seriously to begin with. You might say, well, Dr. Stebbin, I'm just not, you know, I'm not good at grammar. I'm not good at punctuation. You better find somebody that's good at it, and you let them read it and review it. Find somebody that you can trust that's going to try to circumvent a lot of those issues before it comes to us. Remember, once we get started, there's a quick turnaround on all of this. So you don't have a lot of time to go back and to continue revisiting some of the same things that you should get right the first time. You already have a master's degree. So with that in mind, or many of you still have a master's degree already. But with that in mind, just make sure you do your best the first time. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Hamilton at this time, who's going to begin talking to you about task 1 of the AAPSL. Dr. Hamilton.
Thank you, Dr. Steadman. I will try to share my screen, and if for some reason it doesn't share, please let me know. You know, you
It's
just
there.
never know. Oh, perfect. Yay.
Sure,
All right.
yeah.
So the AAPSL is our first task that you're going to do this semester. And that has 5 parts to it. And so back to what Dr. Steadman was just talking about, your school profile. What makes your school special? What makes your school unique? What makes your school stand out? You want all kinds of demographic data that you can provide. What's the number of teachers? What's the population? Has there been a change in that population? Maybe you were Title I at one point, you're not Title I now, or vice versa. How does your report card grades, EVOS reports, anything that can let us know what is special about your school? If in the community, what do they say about your school? What is your school known for? So just really, we want that inclusive picture of your school, so that when we read your school profile, we can visualize in our minds, hey, I think I would recognize that if I walked in that building. So make sure that you do that. Just a little quick APA plug here for your school profile when you are doing things like demographics. So let's say that you have 50% African American, 30% white. I got to count now, 20% Asian. I'm going to make it easy. Then you're going to do that in sequential order, whichever is the largest. Anytime you're listing demographic data like that, you list it from the largest number to the smallest number in sequential order. So that's just a little plug for you right there. But talk about your staff, the staff experience. I only have one beginning teacher in my school of 33 teachers. So that's regular classroom teachers. That doesn't include the other teachers. I only have district that have basically all BTs. So those are the kinds of things that you are going to want to include in your school profile, because all those things matter. So just another little plug about that. So task 1 has 1 prompt. Some of our tasks that you will complete this semester have 2 prompts, but task 1 has 1. Now, task 1, and again, this is a graduate course. So with any graduate course, you are going to do a lot of research. So task 1 is you researching PLCs. You need at least 3 researchers cited, and we'll go over this next week as well, but you can go to the Garden Web Library in Bulldog 1 and you can search there. And also, if you do go to Google, make sure that you're going to Google Scholar. You want primary sources, not secondary sources. So you want at least 3 sources. One of those must be Richard DeFore. He is the seminal researcher for PLCs, so one must be him. You will have to have this written in APA 7th edition. I do advise you to get the APA 7th edition format so that you can use that as a reference throughout your entire course. So when you're looking for in your research, you want to think about what is a PLC? What does a good PLC look like? How are they highly effective? And like PLC norms and things like that that you want to look to be researching, like what is really a PLC? Many of us have meetings in schools and we call them PLCs, but they're really not research-based PLCs. So we want you to understand the tenets of those research-based PLCs. And then at the bottom of that, we want you to conclude with a section that describes a description of how you are going to create your PLC in your school based on this is research. So that means you are coming together in a literary review of at least 3 different research articles. So you're going to pull up the research, you're going to read them, and then you're going to assimilate those into a written narrative. And anytime that you say, whatever you say in there, you must give credit to the author. You must always give credit to the author. Now we do at the very end, if you don't give credit to the author, we do have a turn it in check process and it will catch it if it does not have credit. So anything that you do, please avoid a lot of direct quotes. That does not really make your paper flow well. Please try to synthesize the information that you get into a written narrative, but still giving the authors credit for what you have said. A lot of direct quotes is not conducive to a good solid read, and it also does not show that you have really processed that information and synthesized that information. So that is what we are needing to see there. And when you do your references, please look at your APA 7th edition on how to cite those references on the in-text citations. And then you also must have a corresponding piece in your reference in your reference section. I guess that's not what I want to say, but anyway, you must have that in your reference section as well that correlates with the in-text citations. So then you are going to select a PLC for your school for your work here. You must have a PLC that you're going to create. You're going to want at least 4 or 5 people for your PLC, and that's really enough. You want to document the criteria that you have used to select your PLC members. Now, we've said this before, we're going to say it again. You want people who are going to support you and work with you. You don't want someone who's going to be difficult, because this is a lot. You're going to be asking a lot of them, and there's going to be like weekly meetings. So go ahead and plan and know that's going to be happening. And you want people who's going to support you. You want professionals who are driven for that growth mindset at all times, people who are always searching and wanting to make teaching and learning better for children. So select those people who are going to be a willing participant for you. You can identify them. Some people don't use people's names. Some people use people's names. Some people use pseudonyms, and that's fine. Whatever you want to do is fine. But just talk about what was the criteria you used to invite people to your PLC. What kind of strengths do they bring to your PLC? And you can even add things like their educational credentials, the amount of time at your school, the amount of time in education, their degrees. Do they have a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, a doctorate degree? What do they have? So there are all kinds of things that you can add to that to make that section of your task 1 thorough and complete. Then you're going to have your first meeting. Now, this might be the hardest thing you do in this whole program, is your first PLC meeting. Because truly, your first PLC meeting is simple. Now, I know, I just said it's the hardest thing you're going to do. You're going to lead your first meeting. You're going to talk with your PLC about the vision and purpose of your PLC. You're going to, you want this in some kind of a digital format, Google Slides, Google or PowerPoint, whatever. You can use that. You can send that out. You can use that for many things in this class. And you're going to use the research that you've done for task 1 to share with your PLC about what a true PLC truly is. You're going to share with them, this is what I've learned from the research that we should be doing in PLCs. Now, why did I say that's going to be hard? Because you and your PLC are going to start jumping to, oh, we think this is our problem. This is what we want to research. No, it is not time for that yet. Do not jump ahead. You are just teaching your PLC what a PLC is. You're establishing norms and protocols. That's all you're doing right now. Now, before you meet with your PLC, you do need to send your principal an email asking for permission to establish a PLC. You need to get a response in an email from your principal that you have permission to do that. And you'll add that to this part of your PLC meeting. And then that copy of that email, screenshot of that email, will be in your appendix in task 1. And then remembering that you're going to be using APA 7th edition. Your references from your narrative are cited correctly in that reference section. Your appendices, you're going to have those. And remember that at least one appendix that you'll have in this is that your administrator gave you permission to conduct that PLC. Now, the template that is in Blackboard for you for the AAPSL, follow that. We talked about that Tuesday night. Anything in black stays. You don't change the font. You don't change bold versus not bold. You don't change single space versus double space. You keep the template just like it is. And Dr. Stedman said a few minutes ago about punctuation, and I don't know what else he said. I was thinking spelling, but I don't think he ever said that.
I said capitalization.
Capitalization, right. So I say all that to say, Word documents are your friend. They provide you with blue and squiggly lines, blue and red squiggly lines. And when you look at your Word document, when you see a blue squiggly line or a red squiggly line, you need to look. You might just have a typo. You might have used the wrong verb tense, whatever. Please look at your blue and red squiggly lines. They are your friends and can help you immensely.
And it will help with sentence structure, Dr. Hamilton.
It does.
You
It
know,
does.
It helps
Yeah.
with sentence structure. So
That's right.
again, pay attention to that. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Hamilton. And we're going to come back to, again, task 1 again at the very end, just as a quick reminder so we can refocus on what you have to do to begin with. So next, Dr. Hamilton, Dr. Revis, if you would move forward with AAPSL Task 2.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So after your organizational meeting, your next meeting will come in task 2. And I like to call this meeting your data dive. Now, on Tuesday night, at least in Dr. Stedman and my class, we emphasized over and over and over the data that you're looking at and growth. It is not about discipline data or attendance data. Those come in play later on, but for this task and for the AAPSL, you are going to look at student achievement and growth. All right, those will be your data sets. So the first thing you do in prompt 1, in this particular task, there are 2 prompts, and you will find that some only have 1, most have 2. So in the first prompt, you're going to be looking at data collection strategies. So you will facilitate a discussion with your PLC members to determine what strategies that you guys are going to use to collect data. What data sets will you collect and who will collect the data sets? Remember, student achievement and growth. Next, you will facilitate a discussion about setting the criteria for a process for identifying the most pressing need. When you do your data dive, the purpose of completing that analysis is so you can, as a PLC, identify your most pressing need. So what process is your PLC going to use to analyze these data sets? And what criteria will you use to determine the most pressing need? Next, you have to show in your narrative that you are collaboratively facilitating a discussion about that data dive, where you're examining and disaggregating your data sets. What subgroups did the PLC look at? Maybe you looked at historical data sets. Talk about that. What growth data did you use? And then you're going to identify your most pressing need. What were the findings of the data dive? And how? And lastly, clearly identify the most pressing need, such as it may be that the data that you're going to look at is K2 literacy, and that throughout your data dive, you notice that reading comprehension keeps popping up as being an area of need consistently throughout the grade levels. That is your most pressing need. The data, don't go into this already deciding your most pressing need. The data determines your most pressing need, okay? All right, now in your second prompt, prompt 1, you're going to narratively discuss those things I just talked about. In prompt 2, you're going to then show your graphic representation of some of the data sets that you looked at with some narrative explanation. So for example, and I stole this from Dr. Hamilton. Dr. Hamilton, I hope you're okay with that. This is an example of where a student looked at a summary of the North Carolina report card, and it's kind of blurry there, but they're looking at college level, grade level proficiency here. Again, that achievement. Now, you don't want to just stick an arbitrary chart out there. You want to describe what the chart represents, provide a little lead in to what this figure represents. And of course, the notes there are due as an interpretation to the figure. Here's another figure that you might want to look at. Again, this is showing grade level proficiency and college and career level proficiency in North Carolina. And another example there. So in prompt 2, you're going to use your figures, your graphs, your charts that you have examined in your PLC to tell your story leading up to the most pressing need. And that's where you end up. You conclude with a summary statement and clearly restate the most pressing need. Now, here's the biggest pitfall you'll have. Don't go into the meeting already decided what your most pressing need is. The data that you lead and facilitate, that data analysis, that's going to determine your most pressing need. You have to schedule a meeting to present your PLC findings to your admin team. And you would develop an agenda, a PowerPoint or a slideshow to show, so you can use some of the charts and figures that you've used in your task. Video is not required, but we recommend it. But at a minimum, you need to include a picture of you presenting to your principal or leadership team. But you have to present the findings of this PLC and identifying your most pressing need to your principal and or leadership team.
Thank you, Dr. Revis. As a reminder, I just saw some of the chats coming up. Dr. Hamilton, thank you for responding. But reminder, under week 1 in Blackboard, all of these presentations are there. So you can go back to week 1 and you can find everything that's being presented. Also, remember that under the AAPSL template and materials section, remember your template is there. There is an example that you can follow of the AAPSL. It's the only time you'll ever get a full example of a completed AAPSL, of a completed evidence. And then one more thing, the helpful hints document. And with the helpful hints document, we have given examples of everything that we're talking about in there. So you've got lots and lots of help aids that's already built into Blackboard for you. Dr. Hamilton, task 3 of the AAPSL.
I'm ready. So the very pivotal, what Dr. Revis just said, you have now finished task 2. You only know what your most pressing need is. That's all you know. You do not in task 1 or task 2 have a solution to your most pressing need. Back to what's going to be the hardest thing for you is not to jump ahead to a solution. So at the end of task 2, you know what you're. Stick with what Dr. Revis said, and let's say it's reading comprehension. So let's just stick with that for a minute. So in task 3, now you have identified your most pressing need. Okay, reading comprehension. So now we want a research-based solution. We do not need to know what anybody thinks about this themselves if they have not done research on it. So we want a research-based solution. So you're going to go to your PLC, and this is pivotal throughout this process as well, that you are exemplifying in your narrative writing, that you are the leader of your PLC, and that you are working with your PLC. You need to constantly be reiterating that in your narrative as you go through. This is a collaborative process. So you are going to do research on the most pressing need. So let's say that reading comprehension is our most pressing need. You are going to research how to improve reading comprehension. You're going to present those solutions, what you find in research to be proven strategies to your PLC. Now, task 3 does have 2 prompts. We love 2 prompts. Prompt 1 is all about the research. Now you're going to present that research to your PLC and to your professors in your portfolio as a literature review, a review of the literature, and in the format of an annotated bibliography. We'll talk more about the the factors that make those distinguished from one another later, but you can also research that yourself, and I'll show you an example in just a moment. And then task 2 is going to be that visual representation of what you wrote about in task 1. Now, task 2 is always going to have, with the visual representations, some narrative to it. Task 1 is all narrative. Task 2 will be some visual representations with some narrative. And in this course, all of your visual representations will be presented as figures. So understand that right now, it will be figures. So you're going to research those best practices with your most pressing need. And then you're going to write about that. You're going to do an annotated bibliography about it, and you're going to do a review of the literature about it. Now, the best practices that you look at, you must have some form of technology not already being used. So let's go ahead and look at this. So when you do your research and your annotated bibliography, you're going to have a minimum of 8 research sources. 5 of those will be like regular research. 3 will be online tools that you're not currently using. So these 8 resources are research solutions or remedies to the most pressing need or the problem that you identified in task 2. And you're also going to have a review of the literature. That's going to have at least 3 resources that have to be about best practices that address your most pressing needs. Now, let's look at an annotated bibliography and a review of the literature. A review of the literature is just like we discussed in task 1 about PLCs, where you're going to read, let's say, 3 pieces of research. You're going to synthesize those. You're going to sort of meld those together into a narrative document. And again, I would say if you absolutely have to have a direct quote, then do that. But the best way to do that is to synthesize that, providing the citations that need to be provided. So that is that. And an annotated bibliography, and you have to have 8 sources of those. 3 have to be technology related. You read a research article and you write a little summation of that research article. Then you read another research article and you write a little summation. So you're not synthesizing the articles in an annotated bibliography like you are in a review of the literature. So know that. So that's task 1. So you're going to do the research about, hey, what do we do with our problem? What do we do about that? That's task 1. Now, task 2, you're going to take what you did from task 1, that writing, that narrative piece, and you're going to put that into visual aids. And you'll still have some narrative there, but you're going to put that into a visual presentation that you have created with your PLC. So here's an example. Let's just say that one of your research-based research articles that you did was on vocabulary. You might do a bubble map. So what is vocabulary? And you can demonstrate that in that bubble map. And then anytime, so this is an example of a figure. So let's look at this and let's pay very careful attention to this. Your figures go in sequential order. They are left justified. And you see this says figure 10. And then every figure must have a title. This one is called the vocabulary bubble map. And it is in italics. And then beneath, you're going to have note. Now, note that the word note is in italics. Now, this, it should just have a period, not a colon, but at any rate, note is in italics. And then you're going to say a little about this. So what does this mean? Okay, the PLC worked as a team. Remember, again, you want to demonstrate that you are leading the PLC and that you all are working collaboratively to look up components of vocabulary. We listed them on this bubble map. Okay, that's great. Now, this is something that I think is pivotal that you include. So in this situation, this student had, and the PLC, had investigated Mystery Science, Study Island, and vocabulary. So they made this chart. interactive, standards aligned, you can see the things right there. And they went through and they identified each of those as whether or not they met that need. And then you can see, after looking up each tool, we suggested that we create a comparison chart. After deciding our most pressing need, we have a better understanding of what type of program would benefit our students. By doing the comparison chart, we were able to decide which tool had more of the components that we were looking for. So based on, once we analyzed this and sort of put it out there for ourselves, we thought that Study Island would be the best online tool for our school and our students. So you can sort of see how that all came together. Had they looked at everything, they analyzed that, and then they just sort of like put it in these visual learning tools to be able to really see what works best for us and our students. So that's a great way to end up task 3.
And Dr. Hamilton, I highly, highly recommend that you use this tool right here. This is an excellent tool, and it's going to be different for all of you because you're going to have different programs that you're analyzing. So that is an excellent tool to use. Okay, Dr. Revis, if you would go to task 4.
Okay, hold on just a moment. Somehow. Let me stop share. Excuse me.
Okay, while Dr. Revis is getting this worked out, already as task 1, 2, and 3 have been explained, can you already see how one task flows directly into the other? Can you begin to see that already? If you can, give me the thumbs up. You're beginning to see that. Okay, that's what we want. Thank you. Dr. Revis.
Okay. I'm trying to get it pulled up, Dr. Stedman. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. There, okay, it's coming up now.
Okay. And for some reason, my screen is just black. I need to.
Okay. Dr. Hamilton, have you got yours? Pull up task 4, and then Dr. Revis can just speak from, can look at that from yours.
Did it show up?
I certainly will.
Okay, it did not. Dr.
I'm
Okay.
coming.
It's
I got
okay. Dr.
Just a
Revis,
second.
Dr.
I got it
Hamilton
coming. I got it coming up. Just a second. Let's see. Got it. Here we go, Dr. Revis.
Thank you, Dr. Hamilton.
Oh, it is my pleasure. I'm glad I can do something. I can never do anything for you.
Okay,
This is great.
you be Vanna for me, okay?
I love being Vanna. Can you see it?
I can. Can you put it in slideshow mode?
I'll be happy to. Maybe.
Well, at least you got it pulled up. I don't know
There
what.
we go. Got it.
All right. Okay. All right. So task 4, in my opinion, is the culminating task for this evidence work. Okay. So if you'll just click, Dr. Hamilton, in task 1, what you did, one more time, you established your PLC with an organizational meeting. Now, this particular figure that I have up here is actually the South Carolina School Improvement Framework. I like to think of the AAPSL is what we're doing is you're simulating building a school improvement plan. Okay. So I'm going to overlay the task here. So with the next click, you can see that task 1, task 2, Dr. Hamilton, if you'll click again.
I'm trying. It's not working for me here. Nope. There we go.
Okay. So in task 2, that's when you're diagnosing. That's where you're doing your data analysis and your data dive, and you're identifying your most pressing need. Then in task 3, It's where you're doing your research. You're selecting programs, but we don't just select programs based on what somebody else is doing in a sister school. Now, you may hear about a program that somebody else is doing, but you have to research that program. It may not even fit your needs. It may not even be similar to what you need to implement in your school. So that's why we do research. Next, what we do is we plan, and that's what we're doing in task 4. We are developing an action plan, like a school improvement plan, a mini school improvement plan. And then you are going to implement that plan. You're going to develop short-term, long-term, and mid-term goals and roles and responsibilities. And then you're going to build in, lastly, a monitoring piece. And that's what task 4 is about: developing a plan, implementing, and monitoring. So with the next screen,
What is going on?
all right, Vanna, come on.
I'm trying something that's not for us here. Not participating for us. Let me hold on just a second. I want to get it out of presentation mode. Maybe that'll help.
Yeah, from here on
Um,
out, you can just stay out of presentation mode.
Sorry, yeah, sorry. Okay, let me go back and share again. Fun times. Here we go. Okay, there we go. Okay. Okay, now.
So this is your graphic organizer that you must use in task 4. Not an option, you must use this one. Now, I always suggest, when we teach students writing, we always teach them to start with a graphic organizer. I always suggest starting here with this graphic organizer and your PLC to start identifying specific activities. You're going to identify things you're going to do to implement to address your most pressing need. Again, based on your research and what you want to implement. And you can see across the top, you fill in a timeline, persons responsible, resources needed. Maybe you're going to have to reallocate some funds if it's a technology tool that you want to purchase. We're going to talk about formative and summative assessments, and we'll explain the difference in both of those as we get deeper into this. Then you'll write your goal and your indicator of success. So again, I would suggest leading your PLC through filling out this graphic organizer first before you do your narrative work. So on the next slide, you explain the action plan narratively. Now, I'm not going to go through all that, but you can see it's quite a bit of writing. Each one of these bullets is actually a section that you're going to write about. You're going to take that information from your action plan and you're going to write about it narratively. And then what you're going to do, the last slide, Dr. Hamilton, you're going to share your action plan. Your PLC has done a great deal of work, all the way from examining data, researching best practices, developing an action plan, and your culminating activity is sharing that action plan with your principal and or leadership team. And then there's a little bit of narrative work that you're going to do after that presentation as well. So again, task 4 is huge. That's what we're working toward. And it simulates a school improvement plan to the T. That's why you're doing this. Thank you, Dr. Hamilton.
Okay. Okay,
My
thank
pleasure.
you, Dr. Revis. Okay, and task 5, Dr. Crawford.
So good evening, everyone. I will go through this relatively quickly. So task 5 is going to be your culminating experience in the AAPSL. Now, throughout the AAPSL and then the second task that you will deal with, the AAPTL, you will go through and you will address 21 competencies, and I've got them listed here, that you will gain experience on throughout the course of your internship work. Again, I'm not going to read to you there, but communications, judgment, technology, which is actually built in to the course. Things like change management, conflict management. And so you will, gain some type of experience or touch each of these throughout the AAPSL first and then the AAPTEL second. Now, where this is going to be housed, and this is the rest of them, and then finishing up with these here. Now, these are actually going to be housed separately in the competency folio. We're going to have a section or lesson on you about how to set that up. Dr. Land's got that coming, so you know what that is. And when you create this, you will actually recount your experiences with these throughout the course of the semester. So when you do the AAPSL of these 21, you will address 12. And then you will do the other 9 when you do the AAPTEL. So what does this look like? You say, well, I actually last semester took one of these and I wrote it up in my role that I was at the time. And I chose time management. I chose time management because at the time I was in a school where I did not have an assistant principal. Well, they said we only had 275 kids. And I would say, well, there are days that 275 feels like, 500, 600, 700. Sometimes it just bees that way. But learning how to manage my time, even in a small school, and be one of the 2 district Spanish immersion magnet schools became an issue. And where I really felt that this was an issue was the time that I needed to make sure that I completed statutory requirements around evaluation versus time that I desperately needed and wanted to do around coaching teachers. And so I said, well, what does this look like? And so this is what I did. And I probably did a little bit extra if I were a student, but I was just a student. So in the competency folio under time management, and there are 2 things you have to remember there. 1, your write-up, and 2, your artifact, which is a thing that, again, I'm not going to take Dr. Lamb's thunder from that, because he's going to explain to you very clearly about what things are and where they need to go. But I said, if I were a Gardner-Webb student and I were writing up time management from the perspective of a sitting principal, for me at the time, this is exactly what would have looked like. So I would have explained what the observation schedule was going to look like, what PDPs look like, what I needed for the timeline. I needed teachers to follow, and then why it's important to balance effectively that coaching piece, and then versus also having the time to complete the statutory requirements around evaluating teachers. And so I would have attached some type of artifact in this one, probably the email outlining what my timeline was for the staff at the time. So again, with this one, this will not be housed in the AAPSL itself. This is going to be housed in the competency folio. You've got a whole lesson coming on that, so just sit tight, don't freak out just yet. But again, you will, by the end of the AAPTEL, have addressed all 21, 12 for the AAPSL, 9 for the AAPTEL. You will do a write-up. Again, yours won't be nearly this big. I'm just a little extra because I'm just like that. But you will have a write-up, and then the thing to remember with these is you will have some type of artifact, whether it's a picture, the email that you will send. There are many where you will actually pull the artifact right from the AAPSL or the AAPTEL. That's perfectly acceptable as well. And we'll be looking through, and we'll be going through and making sure that A, all 21 are addressed, again, 12 for the AAPSL, 9 for the AAPTEL, and then B, that with each of those that you have some type of artifact. So that email you sent your principal, the picture of you presenting to the school leadership team and or your principal, an email where you had to engage with one of them. Let's say you got stuck with dealing with an angry parent, and how you address that angry parent or whatever it was. Something like that could go under sensitivity, could go under conflict management. And you would put that, a copy of that email or a screenshot of the email under time management or conflict management or sensitivity. So that's a basic view of task 5 of the AAPSL, and also kind of a peek ahead to what task 4 of the AAPTEL is going to look like in about 11-12 weeks.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Crawford. And before I turn it over to Dr. Lamb, let's look at, and okay. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Dr. Hamilton? Can you hear me? Okay, let me pull this up. I wanted to, okay, here it is. I want us to, okay, we've given you the whole elephant, and you probably think, wow, I can't do this, but you can do this, because we're going to go back and we're going to refocus on what you have to do now. So again, let's just a reminder, all of this, we're going to do this later on. Dr. Hammond, can you hear me? Have I frozen?
No.
Okay, because I'm just seeing some discrepancies up there, and mine keeps blinking in and out.
I hear you, but you're flicking in and out to a green screen.
I
and
have
then
no idea what's going on, but anyway,
we can hear you.
okay, well, that's all that matters.
Yeah, but that might be the green screen of death. So
I don't know. But just remember, go back to task 1. What have you got to do at hand? You've got to go ahead and you've got to get permission from your site supervisor. Talk to them about what you've got to do, what your responsibilities are. You've got to get their permission. Remember that you've got to, you talk to them about it, but then as an artifact, you've got to send them an email just saying, this is what I'm tasked to do as a student at Gardner-Webb University. And then you should get an affirmative response back from them. That serves as an artifact for the work that you do with task 1 of the AAPSL. And remember, your job is to go ahead and to do your research on what a good PLC looks like. And remember, Dr. Hamilton shared with you what that needs to look like with your minimum of 3 references. One of them must be to 4. Remember, you've got to form your team. Who is your team going to be, and why did you pick them, and what are their credentials? What makes them a good team to be on your PLC? And then finally, you've got to meet with them. But that is the task at hand. Now, some of you got confused and you said, well, and I'm still going crazy up there. I don't know what in the world's going on. But some of you were confused. You said, well, how can I do all that this week? It's not due this week. We said get started this week. And then your work is actually due next week, and it will be submitted for review. We will talk to you about this again on Tuesday night, but we've given you all this so that you can go ahead and get started. You cannot wait until next week to get started on this. So with that in mind, Dr. Lamb, you will have the benediction to say whatever it is.
All right, I've got a few things, and unfortunately for y'all, my camera is working just fine because I'm like Dr. Stedman. I've got a face made for radio. But let me share my screen right quick. Yes.
while you're doing that, can I just remind the students as they begin to work on their school profiles, it is very important to not to forget to make sure that as you are putting together that school profile, that you cite anything that is not common knowledge. So, you know, let's say, for instance, you work in a small rural county, you grew up in the county, your parents went to the school, their siblings went to the school, you went to the school. You may have a lot of background information around, you know, certain things in the school. Nobody else will. And so I urge all the students to make sure that anything that is not common knowledge, just assume that that's information that you need to cite as you are putting together your school profile. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great point. I would recommend in the chat, I put some things, and I'm gonna put one more thing in just a minute, so you can cite references. Tonight has been referenced the templates. The easy way to begin the AAPSL is to pull up your template. It says your name here. This is not an IQ test, but your name there, and you can use this to write your evidence at your AAPSL. And so highlighted areas, add your text here. Red text is a reminder and should be deleted. All text in black stays. Your school profile, that means you got to write something there. And then you leave the description, PLC research, and then here's the reminder from tonight. Here's tonight's notes. They told you. Everything in red is what they told you tonight. It's almost like we do this for a living. And then task 2, and it's got everything that you've got to add there, data presentations, and again, use this graphic organizer to put your action plan together. Thinking ahead, you're going to use this every semester. And when you get for each of your evidences, and when you get to the end, guess what they're going to ask you to do in your last evidence is to put this plan together. And if you have done it all along the way, everything will be good. But if you've used different formats that don't fit together, you're in trouble. You're making a working copy of your school improvement plan that principals have stuck somewhere, either in under the glass on their desk or on a corkboard behind their. This is what we do this month, and this month. Because as you know, you don't just do your instructional piece, then you do your personnel piece, and then you do your scheduling. You do them at different times. This is going to be your working copy, so make sure that you do that. We've got examples of how to write, just like Dr. Crawford showed you. We've got examples of how to write your competencies at the end. This is competency analysis, how to write those. And we've also got examples of how to cite your references at the end of that somewhere down. And there we go. So we've got not only directions, but we've got examples throughout your template. This will be gold for you. Now, full disclosure, we work on what is commonly known now as gradual release. Back in the day, we used to call it intentional abandonment. What that means is in first semester, you get full notes, you get full template, you get full everything. Be a little bit less, for the AAPSL, be a little bit less, not much. Next semester, when you hit the OMA, it will be simply the directions. And when you get to the fourth one to skip, you'll be on your own to make your own template. Utilize these quickly and to get you started, but understand that we're not always just going to give you everything, that we're going to step back and have you step forward. So that's part of it. In the chat, I put a couple of things. Let me move this out of the way now. I put in there the report card home for South Carolina. I put the link to that. It's right up here, screportcards.com. If you don't know if you've not seen your school report card, there it is, North Carolina. I've put the link in to how to get to there. And this is where a lot of your data will come from. Be sure to cite your references. The only other thing that I would say is for your school profile, you might want to ask for your accreditation report for your school. That would be Cognia or Advanced Ed or SACS, whatever accreditation system that your district uses. You have an accreditation report your principal has at your school. The opening section of that is your school profile, by the way. You can just copy and paste it if you got it. but ask your principal for a copy of your accreditation report, and it will have, and you can cite it, as Dr. Crawford said, you got to cite these things. You can cite your accreditation report. Again, that's FANCED or what's now known as Cognia or SACS accreditation, and they will have a school profile for you in there. Now, for your school report card, we're gonna work without a wire here, Dr. Hamilton. Where are you? We're gonna pull up Dr. Hamilton's school report card.
Please, please.
All right, so she's at
I
Masonboro.
don't care. Mhm.
Look at there. What is her
Yeah.
school grade? A. A's in school report cards are more are as rare as hairs on the top of my head. I told you she's the real deal, and so is Dr. Crawford. But this is what, when you click on that, this is what you get. It's got performance by subgroups right here. This is what you want to look at that when you're doing disaggregating your data. See all this growth that she got report card A, see all that exceeded growth in all these scores. And here's all of her readiness and disadvantage. Look at here. Here's all of her charts for her math performance, reading performance, science performance, other measures, all these things. Great day. A lot of data. A lot of data down here that we're going to use when we get to the OMA in terms of suspension and crimes and all that kind of stuff. Now we don't use that. We're doing academics this semester, but eventually we'll use pretty much everything on teacher qualifications. We'll use everything on this report card at some point. And it's even got a button that you can hit for subgroups. So the data is at your fingertips. You just got to go and find it. Again, you can pull up your school right there. You're good to go. So those are the two sites for your report card. The other thing is that was referenced tonight, and I'm not sure you know how to get there. And so I'm going to go from the very beginning. So when you dial up Gardner Webb University and it says, "Welcome to the Springs," right here at the top, when you click to go to Web Connect, you click there, Web Connect, and this is how you get to Blackboard. When you click into Blackboard, instead of clicking under my course, let me get that out of the way so I can read, you'll see a tab up here at the top that says Library. Let me pause just a minute. I'll even stop my video so my handsomeness won't distract you. When you go to Blackboard, instead of going into your course under my courses, you'll click on the Library tab. And then on Library homepage, Gardner Webb has paid for each of you, and it will link back to your Gardner Webb email, has paid for you a Bulldog One search. This is a professional research tool. You can research anything you want to, just like an Eric search back in the old days, Google Scholar, all of it is right here at your fingertips, and it is free. Simply go to the library homepage. Once you go to the library tab, go to the library homepage, and right here is your Bulldog One search. You can research anything you want to. If you want to, for example, if your most pressing need is reading fluency and you've got to work on that, you're trying to figure out what that is, you can Google reading. I think y'all did comprehension. And here's all kind of scholarly articles on reading comprehension. All kinds of things right there at your fingertips. And this is not fake news. This is a search engine for research. And so you've got everything that you need right there. So to conclude, you have a template to get you started. It's already been formatted. It's already in the right font, all that stuff. It's plug and play on that. You've got notes. We told you where you go get your data. We've shown you where you can go and get your data to get started. You've got these folks here that are available all the time to help you, to coach you through all of this. We'll be on Thursday nights. And sometime later, I will have you I've already set up your task stream VRF, but I'll show you how to, it takes about 30 seconds to build a competency folio. And as I told you earlier in the week, that competency folio serves a double duty. It proves that you did your clinical work, and it's a great link to have to show a prospective employer when you're done at the program. You'll have that thing built out by then, and it will have all these artifacts, things that you have done. It'll have pictures of you, it'll have videos, it'll have screenshots. It'll have all these things that show that you did the work that you did. You just want to tell people that you did it. You can show people that you did that you have the experiences that qualify you to take that next step in the school administration. I hear Just As I Am playing in the background, Old Baptist as I am. So I guess that means it's time for the benediction to come to a close here. So we appreciate you being with us tonight. Again, class will be next Tuesday with your individual professors. Next Thursday, we'll be back online again, working with you. And remember, as Dr. Stedman started out tonight, Stephen Covey said, start with the end in mind. So we've shown you the entire AAPSL tonight, but remember, we don't expect it done in a day or a week. We're going to break it down into 5 tasks, and we're going to tackle those a week at a time or 2 weeks at a time. And so, you know, we've got about 16 weeks, and we've got plenty of time to do the 9 tasks that we've got this semester. So don't sweat that part. It'll be good. If you have any questions, they should be in the chat, but I think I've told you everything I know and a couple things I didn't, so I'm done.
Dr.
Okay.
Stedman,
Yes.
we need to remind everybody to go make sure they have done their enrollment. Who have not done that.
EVA,
Also, their contact information for 1 point.
right.
All right, so let me share my screen right quick for those of you who don't know. All right, so let me get out of that and go back to Blackboard. So you go to your course under my courses, and I'll go to Dr. Stedman's course down here. I've got his. And so when you click on your course right here under course overview, it's got your enrollment verification activity. Make sure that you click on that and then verify that you're in the course. And you can go to your 697 or 698 course for your clinical. That's what we were working on tonight. You can do the same thing in there. And also, you need to go to, let's see. You need
Dr.
to,
Lamb, while you're looking,
here it is. You need to go to discussion board
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
and upload your contact information right here as well.
Right. Make sure that you're checking your Gardner Webb email on a daily basis. That's important, on a daily basis. And I know some of you said that that's not your preferred email. It has to be in this program. So make sure that you check your Gardner Webb email on a daily basis. Okay. Staff, thank you so much. Did an excellent job. I think we've given you a lot. We've given you what you need to get started successfully. Everything that was presented tonight, you can find it in your Blackboard shell. We didn't present anything that's not already built in there for you. We're going to hang on for a few minutes. Those that don't need to hang on, you can sign off, and we'll see you on Tuesday. I think a couple said they had a question or two. We'll hang around for just a few minutes in case there's a question that we need to answer for you. But thank y'all so much.
It is storming in some areas of the state right now. Yes.
Right.
Really bad.
I have a question. I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead, Kayla.
I was going to have a question, by the way. I am concerned with a couple of things. So as we were going through all of the tasks, I'm concerned about my location. And so I talked to Dr. Hamilton briefly on Tuesday about my situation, and it is kind of unique. So I am teaching virtually for an alternative school. And so like while you were talking and I saw you like dropping links in the chat in terms of accreditations and like school profiles, there is none of that for Rise Academy. They don't feel very real to me right now because there is no evidence of the school. Like I've went to multiple websites and it's not there. So, and I do have a meeting with my principal tomorrow, so hopefully we'll be able to talk about it. But my concern is it's going to be really difficult for me to come up with all of these components when there is a lack of information.
How old is your school, Kayla?
Mhm.
I am not sure. There's no, like, there is no evidence that the school really exists. Like I see a Facebook page. So I don't know if it's like, essentially what happens if the kids get into an altercation in a regular setting, they're pulled from that. And then they have an opportunity to go face to face. But if that doesn't work, then they're virtual. So what's happening is all of my kids, I have I don't even know. I have kids who are at home and I have about 2 kids who are in the building, but 2, like in the building total are 10 kids. And this is a high school. So I don't know when they come into play, or if it's just a place that we're just sticking kids because they can't deal with, a greater population. But it just seems like I'm going to have some trouble with getting things done.
Hey, Kayla, I just have a quick question. Are you working for a specific district?
So it's Danville Public Schools.
You told me that. That's right.
And this is called Rise Academy, but it's on, like, if you Google it, it says something like Langston High School.
She's in Virginia.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And so, because I was in North Carolina when I started this process, and I
Right.
live in North Carolina. But yeah, I'm just really concerned. Even when we talk about, student needs,
Okay.
it's unfortunate when the staff, like when the people in charge don't care, then it's going to be really hard to figure out what needs are. Because right now they're on an online program called Edgenuity. There's like zero instruction. It's just it's program, do the work.
Kayla, I would recommend that you meet personally with Dr. Hamilton and Dr. Crawford, and that let them talk to you, and then let them work out after they figure out something. Talk to Dr. Lamb and see what can, how they can figure out how you can make this happen after that. Dr. Lamb, does that sound like a plan?
Yeah, well, and we've done this a couple of times.
Uh-huh.
This is not new. And
Right.
so we simply had the student attached to the high school that you're attached to. That would be your home school. Yeah, we've done this. I'm trying to,
Right. Mhm.
Dr. Stedman, you remember the last one that we had. She was such
Yeah.
a nice lady
Right.
that went to Danville.
Yeah, we've done this before, Kayla. So
Yeah,
so
this is not our first time doing this. And so we
don't
had one in
stress. We'll
exactly
figure
the
it out.
same situation.
Okay,
Maybe,
perfect.
And with
maybe
Dr.
what?
Hamilton and Dr. Crawford, you've got the perfect people to help you with that too. So
Yeah.
don't worry.
Yeah.
They will figure it out with you.
That
And
high
Kayla,
school
do you-
exists and you've got all of their data and that's what you use because you are a subset of that high school.
Okay.
So you just
Kayla,
use
do you
their
know
data.
Do you know who your CC one is now? We talked about that the other night.
Ramsey,
Good
Mr.
man.
Ramsey, for CC1 in Danville. And he helped with that last one as well, by the way.
Perfect.
Oh, good. That's great.
So he's aware. He did this before as well, and I'm having a senior moment to remember her name. She was the nicest lady ever. And we did exactly the same thing. She had started the program in North Carolina, moved across the line to Danville, and was in one of these kind of programs and same kind of thing. We just had her attached to the high school. She just sailed right through. Everything was fine.
Perfect. That makes it a lot easier.
Yeah. Yeah, you've got plenty of
didn't even
data on your high
Yeah.
school, but yeah,
Yes. Okay.
We've done exactly the same thing before.
Okay. Do I need to
Yes,
type
Kayla.
up a document just so that we have like documentation that I'm going to
You
be?
just put it in the school profile to start
Okay.
with. That's exactly what that's for.
Okay.
Is to say, I'm at this part of this high school. And
Okay.
then we just go from there.
Okay. Got
And about 3 o'clock this morning, when I wake up, I'll remember that lady's name.
it. I'm sure that's how it goes. Got it. Okay. Well, that works out perfectly. I was
Yeah,
concerned the whole time. I'm like,
that's
this is
not a problem at
impossible.
all.
Perfect.
Thank you, Kayla.
That'll work. Thank
Okay.
you.
Another question?
I had a question that's similar. I work across my entire division. So I don't have a home school. I'm a behavior specialist and I support one of our MAC service programs. So do I pick a school that I have a good relationship with, or how would I do that?
And Tanya's in my district, and we talked the other day, and the school that she is at is getting ready to have its fourth, that she's not at a school.
Right.
The school she works at mostly is getting ready to have its fourth principal this year.
Right.
Okay, hold 1 second. I have,
She's gonna have to have somewhere to have a PLC. And
all right,
and
so,
academic data.
There is another school that I work with that has a new principal, but not new, like she's
The
new to
Gregory,
No, it's College Park.
oh, College Park, okay. Mhm.
so on CC1 emails, they'll go out probably tomorrow. They got the list last night and they're sorting through them today. You'll get an email shortly from your CC1 question that just came up in the chat. But on the deal, like with Tanya, where you're working at a central location and you're working across schools, we have that all the time
Okay.
as well. We have a lot of folks who are in central services of some sort. And so here's your option. You can partner with one school that you service, or you can form your PLC from your colleagues in your department.
Oh, okay.
You can do either of those. That's going to be the easiest for you. The important part is that you lead the PLC. That
So
you
we
don't attach to one that's already there, or sit in the back. The whole notion is forming one. And if thinking down the road, looking at the different tasks, looking at the different evidences, I would recommend read through each of the evidences, and then you determine, should I try to partner with a school, or can I form my PLC from my group here? But now remembering, it has to be an academic PLC for this one. We do academics now, and that's going to be very important as we go through. There's going to be a time when we're going to do discipline. That's going to be one of the things. We're going to do some other things, but this semester we're focused on academic achievement. So we're going to need to be able to look at performance data from students, not their suspension rates or any of that. We need to look at their test scores. But your PLC can look at a school, but that doesn't mean that those people have to be from that school. But that's what you got. That's going to be the content of your PLC.
Okay.
Is
Could it
making
be-
sure that you understand we're looking at test score data this semester.
Yes,
but-
sir.
But whichever is most convenient for you, partnering with the people at the school, but you're going to choose that school to pull the data from. But your PLC members, that's up to you.
Can it be on replacement curriculum data?
No.
Okay.
It needs to be on the school performance data, because that's what principals have to look at. I mean, that's what they're responsible for. That report card, about, and Dr. Crawford and Dr. Hamilton would be more appropriate to speak to this. It varies by district, but your EVOS data, your school performance data, report card data, and your teacher working conditions survey make up probably somewhere between 40 and 80% of your principal evaluation. So it wouldn't be fair to us to train you on things that don't really matter. And then when you get out in the field, they're holding you to a standard that you're not prepared to meet, but you don't know why are they evaluating me on this. I'm telling you, that state report card, if it didn't matter, we wouldn't have it. That state report card data, that EVOS growth data, or in South Carolina, if you're not using EVOS, if you're using SLOs, that growth data, are you growing students or are you warehousing them? And then that teacher working condition survey, or that advanced ed or Cognia, same thing in South Carolina. Those are the three things that principals is the bulk of their evaluation for the job that they do. So you can't ignore those things.
Can you give me a call tomorrow, 74901. That's my desk. 74901.
Okay, Tashawn? Tashawn, you have,
Yes, I'm here. Thank you. My question, I'm Tashawn Cannon out of South Carolina. I have to figure out how to get this camera to work again. My question relates to my site supervisor. Initially, I had my principal to send in the actual form that she would be willing to supervise me. Since then, my assistant principal has expressed great concern, and I emailed her today about being able to do the PLC at our school. and she replied back, yes. Is there a complication with switching up the supervisors?
No, meet with Dr. Revis and she'll help you go through that process of change.
Okay, I'll email Dr. Revis tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
Thank you.
Renee, you're welcome. Renee?
Hey, everybody. I'm getting a little bit of friction, and I've already talked to Dr. Revis and Dr. Stedman, but I'm thinking with this performance thing, I think that's kind of why I'm getting the friction. I think the school itself is kind of concerned about finding out different needs of the school and different things they're not needing. I'm thinking that's why I'm getting this
It's
friction.
not a secret. They do know this stuff's public, don't they?
Yeah, so I'm thinking like maybe that's why I'm getting some friction from the principal on even starting a new PLC. Like, is anybody else experiencing that from their, site
We
supervisor?
have that every semester where some folks think that their performance is a secret that nobody at the school knows or nobody in the community knows. Everybody knows. And this is normal at the beginning. And there are always some trepidation at some schools, how are you going to weaponize this against the administration?
And again, Renee.
Bad. They don't need you to make them look bad. Their scores do that for them. So this is normal.
Yeah, once Phyllis Talent is your CC1, once she meets with you and your principal, hopefully that will resolve those issues for you.
I'm hoping so. Thank you.
Dr. Talent is a longtime principal and she
Yeah.
knows the deal.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, Ruby?
Good evening. How are you all doing tonight?
Hey, Ruby.
I apologize. I came in a little late. We actually had graduation. I'm a school counselor as well. And so I just wanted to just make sure as I was formulating and meeting with some potential PLC members and just going over and trying to also, I guess, correlate with the school's mission and purpose statement. I wanted to know, as we are working on student learning, if rigor, like when it comes to rigorous learning, increased academic rigor as it pertains to the student, as it pertains to course offerings, things like that, would that be okay topic to be able to be discussed?
My question would be, how are you going to A, define it, and B, measure it?
Measure it. Rigor can't be operationally defined. Thank you, Dr. Crawford.
Okay.
So, I mean, I get where you're going, but in a 15-week course, you're not going to have the time or the resources to pull it off.
And
Okay.
remember, you're going to look at your data to determine what you're going to look at. Don't jump ahead. I don't know if you said you were late. I don't know if you heard that part. That's the hardest part of this, is to not jump ahead. You need to collect the data and let the data tell you what the most pressing need is. So we're not defining that right now.
And again,
That's
Ruby,
the hardest part.
remember, it's going to be something that can be tested or, like with EOC or EOG testing, you got to be able to look at, be able to test it and measure it based on test results.
Rigor may come into play later on, but for the purposes of the AAPSL, we're looking at standardized test scores that aren't debatable.
Right.
Either you scored high or you scored low or somewhere in the middle, but that number is not subjective. It's operationally defined. This is how we measure. Things like rigor, we can talk about that when we do the AAPSL. We can talk about rigor when we're looking at who's using best practices in their classroom. That's where rigor comes in. We're going to do that next. But again, that's working ahead. This semester, for the AAPSL, we're looking at standardized test scores that are not subjective, that are not debatable, that somebody can't claim, well, we don't need any help in reading, comprehension, or fluency. Here's the number. It's not debatable. It's posted. It's public information. It's either good, bad, or somewhere in between. And that's how we start. And again, if report cards didn't matter, we wouldn't have them.
Right. Okay, well, I thank you all.
You're welcome.
A great night.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, Ruby.
okay, before we close, last call.
I have a question real quick.
Okay, Misty.
In the past, we've had, PLCs, which were basically grade level meetings, you know, that kind of thing, that weren't true data dives and looking at data. Well, this year, I'm an instructional coach and our district has mandated true PLTs. And we have, we've looked at EVOS, we're digging into benchmark data, M-class, we're a K-8 school. But it's been a district mandate and we've had a little bit of pushback with, for the most part, teachers have been pretty receptive to PLCs. But I'm worried about how I'm going to form a new PLC in addition to what the district has mandated this year at the school level. You know, because they're grade level or they're like middle school, they're based on subject area.
Okay, whose class are you in, Misty?
9.
With
Yes,
With
Dr. Hamilton.
9. Mhm.
Dr. Hamilton? Okay, she'll help you figure that out.
Okay,
And it may be that you have to work with an existing PLC, but take on a new focus with them.
okay,
Mhm. Because
new-
if you're doing grade levels, then they're focused on their grade level. This process is really looking at like that overall school piece.
okay,
So when you look at that overall school piece, if you see that it teases out to one grade level, let's say first grade, then you can sort of think about it from that. But this is more like they're focused, if I'm hearing you correctly, they're focused on their individual like
yes,
subject area.
yes,
This is more of a school-wide kind of like to prepare you as a leader of a school to look at that school-wide component.
so maybe some of our SIT team members possibly.
That sounds good.
If I
Yeah.
could get, you know, the thing is getting them to willingly do this in addition to
What
you
else
know,
they're
what
doing.
they already have to do.
I
So,
know, I know.
Misty is a small group and you find people that they're going to do it just because they want to help Misty.
right.
You know, that's what you're gonna, you just work creatively with that.
Okay,
That's right.
I'm gonna talk with, I've already, you know, my principal's good with the PLCs already and me doing another one. But I'm gonna meet with her again and see maybe what we could
Okay.
do. Would
You
it
call
be,
me. You have my cell, right?
Okay.
You have my cell, right? It's
Yes,
on the
I do.
overview page.
yes,
Give me a call.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, Dion?
Okay, so my question is about the frequency of the PLCs, because the teachers at my school currently, they meet maybe twice a month. And I was reading in here that it was saying that we might have to meet with them most weeks. How are we gonna get around that? That's my biggest
To
concern.
begin with, you're gonna have to do it for the first few weeks. It's good, it's a necessary part of the process, the first few weeks. Again, that goes back to finding people that want want you to be successful in this program. They'll work with you. So you don't want to find people that are going to create problems for you. In that small group that you find people that's going to work with you. And again, that's a creative process.
Well, see, my biggest issue too is I work at a school that only has 19 teachers. So it's
Right.
not like I have a large pool of people that I can be like, oh, help me out. And my teachers, I'm the CF on top of everything else.
Let
But
me ask you this real fast. Do you have an instructional coach at your school?
that would be
Okay.
me.
That's you. Okay.
I'm
Okay.
everything.
Okay. Okay. I would focus on maybe a grade level person. Is your principal on board with you?
Yes. Oh, she's very supportive.
Okay, well then I would put my principal or a assistant principal on there as well, and maybe find one other. You don't need but about 4 people. in a
Oh,
small
okay.
school like that. So don't make it too big. Well, you've got to find 4 people in a small school of just 19, 4 people would make a good team.
Okay, all right. And so you said the principal could be a part of it. Could I
Yes.
have, for instance, the counselor?
Yes.
Those,
And
okay.
you do need a teacher on there probably at the school. So find at least one teacher that's willing
I
to
can
work.
hopefully wrangle somebody.
Yeah,
Okay, okay, thank you.
you're welcome. Okay, guys. This is a lot, but this has been good. Okay. Are you feeling it? Are you feeling like I can do this?
That's me, I'm halfway.
Them
Yeah,
them
yeah,
or
thumbs
us.
up. You can do this. You can do this. You can do this. Guys, just go ahead and don't wait. Don't wait until next week. Go ahead and work on some things tomorrow. Get it done, and then we will help move you forward again on Tuesday night. You're going to be okay.
And especially the research piece, because that's a lot of reading. And we do have some links to some articles for you in your weekly class.
Right. There's lots of help aids there.
Schedule. So
Lot.
there's help
Yes.
there that you can also use, but there's a lot of reading that you have to do. So go ahead and just get on that reading. Yeah, that'll be helpful. Grayson, you're the best boy ever.
Yes, you look great, Grayson. And just remember, we told you Tuesday night that the first 3 or 4 weeks, it's a lot. It's a lot. You're having to learn how to fit a whole new life into your busy life already. But after 4 weeks, I promise you this, after 4 weeks, you're going to look back and you're going to say, wow, and you can do this. You can do this. So just hang in there. You're in boot camp right now, but you'll pass boot camp. I promise you. Okay. Okay, guys, we'll see you on Tuesday.
Have a
Thank
great
you so
night.
much. Have
Tell
a
us
good
if you
night.
need us.
Good
Thank
night.
you for choosing Gardner Webb.
Good
Thank you.
night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Grayson.